Hello there, ladies and gentlemen. I am the Chall, and welcome to this match preview. We've got Morecambe coming up this weekend. We're going to be delving into everything, the press conference reaction to Grant McCann's pre-match conference. We're speaking about Morecambe ahead of the game, give you my prediction, give you my thoughts, bit of an update on January, injuries, all that good stuff, and maybe some bad stuff, which is obviously a bad thing. But before we get started, please ignore the throw. It's absolutely killing me. Just done an audition, just done loads of different things today, and it's just been knackering. It's more knackering than just hammering something into the ground. I mean, it's a nightmare doing that anyway. But that's how hard it's been. It's been literally like hammering something constantly back and forth into the ground and getting nowhere. It just feels an absolute pain sometimes. But we plough on like the snow plough in December in the Antarctic. We plough on. Please like, comment, subscribe, click notification bell to never YouTube video. We're going to get plenty more content. We've got the arcade video from the Fun Station in Sheffield still to come, which should be on hopefully Saturday or Sunday. Fingers crossed. At the very latest, it'll be some point next week. I am in the process of editing it at the moment. It just needs finishing off. And yeah, we've got plenty more stuff to come. We've got stuff from Blackpool, stuff from Alton Towers next year as well. Got all the matches to come as well. Boxing Day and 29th against Notts County in Mansfield. We now know the date of the round of 16 in the Bristol Street Motors Trophy. So we're going to have a video from the game against Wigan on the 16th of January, which will go online either on the night of the 16th or it will go online probably the 17th, fingers crossed, of January next year. So let's get straight into this then. Let's speak about that press conference from Grant McCann ahead of this weekend's match. And it's very simple, really. Let's speak about injuries first of all. Miller, Westbrook, Lavery and Ravenhill unlikely back for the rest of this season, which is an awful shame. It really is an awful shame. I mean, first of all, George Miller pressing forward. He was a great goal scorer in a really rubbish season for Doncaster Rovers last year, where we finished 18th. And I'll still stand by this. If it wasn't for McSheffrey's points at the start of the year, we would have been near the relegation zone, or we would have been in a situation where we could have got relegated last year if it weren't for McSheffrey's points, in my personal opinion. There were a couple of sides down there who were just as bad, if not worse than us, which is another piece of luck on our side from last season. So thank you, Grant McSheffrey, once again. So yeah, it's good to see Miller gone for the rest of the season. Lavery, again, someone who we had on the transfer list along with Rio, who's now gone anyway, to move out, and I think that would have probably allowed some potential more incomings. Whether it did or it didn't, we don't know for sure. But Lavery out now for the rest of the season. I think he's out of contract next summer in 2024. I'm not too sure on that. Comment down below if you know for sure. But I think he might be. So I think the club will probably just let him go for nothing at the end of this season, which is obviously a shame for Caroline because he's an experienced striker amongst the Football League. And he had a great scoring spell at Scunthorpe before coming to us back in nearly a year ago in January, which is obviously a shame. But yeah, it just didn't quite work out with Caroline. But he's a lovely bloke and I wish him nothing but the best. Same with George as well. Liam Ravenhill, I think we knew already he was out for a year with that massive injury on his leg. So yeah, good for Liam. And Zane's probably the biggest of the four with how much he's been involved this season so far. And he's had some great performances and he's become a bit of an underrated part of that midfield. And to have this injury now for the rest of the season is just a dreadful, dreadful shame. And I think this. And, with Westbrook, with the opportunity to play Westbrook more advanced as well, this, in my opinion, strengthens the fact that we need to be looking for a centre midfielder and a centre attacking midfielder, or two of each position at the very least in this January window, in my personal opinion. We'll speak about January in a moment. But Zayn Westbrook's injury is obviously a dreadful shame. Looks like he's potentially out for the rest of the season. Minimum 3 months, I'd say. Expected minimum 3 months, but potentially looks like the end of the season, which is obviously a dreadful shame. Obviously, we'll get more confirmation on that when we get it. Other injury news: Wood, Faulkner, Marsh and Long expected around 3 weeks potentially, so that's obviously more positive news. Concerning the fact of Faulkner, Marsh and Long, especially with the way Marsh landed at Mansfield. I'm so glad it's going to be 3 weeks and not 3 more months. Maxwell needs an operation, so it looks like it's going to be 3-4 weeks for him. Taylor on his way back, expected hopefully in January. So that's obviously some good news for the wide front, an experienced winger who can operate on that flank. So we'll see how he does. And a couple of knocks expected ahead of this weekend. So again, very broad. We don't know the names of these players, but I'm sure we'll figure it out come the Saturday afternoon when we get the team sheet at 2:00. But there is some positive news. Grant obviously saying once the players are back, we'll get stronger. Obviously, we'll bring a couple of bodies in as well. We could get stronger as well. We are in the top seven in form at the moment in terms of our last few games and our last load of games. We're in the top 7 in terms of the form book at the moment. So I can only take that as a positive in terms of the performance levels on the pitch every week. What we're doing on the pitch every week, and I can only take that as a good thing, really, which is obviously good. But yeah, some of the injuries obviously not so great news. Couple of injuries there, much better news than we thought. So yeah, so definitely some positives there, but yeah, definitely some potential negatives in there as well. So we're now going to speak about January. Definitely front of our thoughts in terms of what the injuries are impacting on the squad, how many injuries are impacting on the squad. I mean, he had to write them down to reveal them on the press conference, so it wasn't great. But it's definitely front of our thoughts in terms of our plans for January, according to Grant McCann. Bailey obviously being played as a centre-back, but to be fair, I don't know how much more I need to say about Owen Bailey. He's just been an absolute Mr. Consistent. He gets the nickname Mr. Consistent. Owen Bailey's just been, the Geordie hybrid. The Geordie hybrid. He's the defender. He's the number 6. He can play as a right back sometimes as well. He is Mr. Consistent. He is the Geordie hybrid. Why man? And yeah, he's just been brilliant this season. He never puts a performance in that's below a 6 or a 7. It's always 6 or 7 and above. And there's definitely been some 9s and 10s out there as well. He's just been fantastic this season. And if he's going to form part of the base of the core of our squad, which I think he will, then bring it on, because we've got a fantastic player in our hands. As long as we can keep him fit, keep him away from the Rovers injury curse, don't let Mr. Evil curse more players with injuries, and then we'll be all right. So yeah, in terms of actual plans for January, it seems like forward and centre back are areas of strengthening. Speaking to the board today, actually, so today when we're releasing this video, he is speaking to David and Gavin, probably Terry as well, to speak about January, the list of targets they've got, who's doable, who's not, and hopefully they can bring them in. So there'll be a couple of players or a few bodies away from being better and consistently, in my personal opinion. I think consistency is the main thing that Grant McCann pointed out. We need to be more consistent. We need to, not roll over on some games. We need to, keep it going and keep it going for as long as we can. Obviously, the consistency, in my opinion, is going to come with time. I think with more bodies back, with a couple more new players in January, and I think with the end of the season and start the next season again, I think that'll make it better for us. I think that we're going to be in a better position for that. For me personally, I think that it's going to be interesting to see what happens and what January does for us in terms of the rest of our season. January could do one or two things for us. It could push us on to potential glory in the playoff spots, or it could derail us. It could derail us like a runaway minecart down a slopey alpine hill. But yeah, it could do multiple different things for us. We just have to be, aware of certain things and things like that. So in terms of the loanees, there is a period of time between the 2nd and the 14th of January where they can make that recall option, the parent clubs. So that's West Brom for Fowl, Hull for Nixon, Wolves for Tyler Roberts, and Sheffield United for Louis Marsh. I still have faith that Louis Marsh comes good. And the reason why I still have faith that Louis Marsh comes good is because I know what he's capable of as a player. So I keep Louis Marsh. He's an option at attacking midfielder. It could save us getting 2 attacking midfielders because it just make us get 1. Obviously, Tyler Roberts, he's not been featuring as much as we would have liked. However, if he's adaptable in that number 10 role, he's another option. If he can adapt that pace and track back when needed to as a wing back, then he's needed. If not, then they'll make a decision at some point whether he goes back to Wolves or not. Fal and Nixon were the 2 main ones that fans I know were gritting their teeth over, like the end of a Dracula movie. He's behind you, he's going to suck your blood. But no, Fal and Nixon were the ones that everyone were focusing on the most, in my opinion. And I think it's evident by the way they've been performing. I think Nixon's been fantastic. If I was Doncaster Rovers, I'd be saying to Hull City, screw your recall period between the 2nd and 14th of January. Can we terminate him 6 months early and sign a permanent deal with this guy? Because in my personal opinion, Tom Nixon, whether it's next month or whether it's the summer, in my personal opinion, I think he will be a permanent player. And unless I see any news reports out there from the Rovers side or the Hull side or both sides in terms of an agreement between the two, that it doesn't happen, I've got full faith it will happen. Mo Fal, the best we can hope for is keeping that loan to the end of the season. If we can negotiate West Brom to say, hey, can we keep him for the rest of the season? Let's do it. Because Fal right now is crucial to the way we play. And the fact that Miller and Lavrie are probably going to be out for the rest of the season. Now, we've only got 2 strikers, barring Goodman, who's part of that future crop, who needs that senior loan out to non-league, just to give him that extra experience to the end of the season, in my opinion. So we need at least 1, maybe 2 strikers here in January. And I think keeping Fal here is going to prevent us from getting 3 strikers. So, for me, I think Fal to stay to the end of the season is going to feel like a new signing. And if West Brom sees the progress he's making here, then they'll hopefully agree. If there's people sniffing about in League One, he decides to stay with us in League Two, then fair enough. We've done an absolute bargain on the Fal deal. The Gambian King. But yeah, there we go. I think Fal staying would be like a new signing. Nixon staying to the end of the season would be fantastic. Roberts, I don't mind what happens to Roberts because he's a fantastic player. But if he's not getting as much game time as we'd have originally liked, and he thinks he can get it somewhere else, then it's up to the 2 parties to agree on that. Louis Marsh, he's been out a long time with injury. He comes back in a few weeks, hopefully. And we could see more of him from that point onwards. We'll have to ease him back. I think it's one of those where we just ease him back and see how he does for the rest of the season. But I think if he picks up another long-term injury between now and the end of the season, between the time he comes back to the end of the season, if he picks up another long-term injury, he's going to go back to Sheffield United to recover for the rest of the year, in my personal opinion. But there we go. Right then, obviously some more topics came up, so let's discuss them. So, of course, one of the big ones for this game is obviously the 200th appearance of Tom Anderson. Of course, Tom Anderson, he came from Burnley originally as a loan deal, then was made permanent afterwards. Tom's just, I can only speak from experience speaking to the guy after games, before games. As a person, wonderful, wonderful guy. A pleasure to be around. A true leader on the pitch. In terms of the player, obviously a fantastic player for the club, fantastic servant for the club. Obviously, that Fleetwood injury back in 2020, he didn't come back the same player after that. He's had his knocks here and there. He's had constant knocks here and there. We trusted him. We give him faith. He's put in better performances. There has been a couple of games where he's been off compared to usual. However, we're starting to see, I think this season compared to last year and whatever, I think we're seeing a bit more of the Tom Anderson we love to see. And, it's fantastic to see that Tom Anderson again, a bit more consistently. Like I said, there is still performances where he can lack a bit, but I think that's partly due to the knocks he's been catching up on. And for me, I think he's going to... I've got a nice prediction he's going to turn up on Saturday. Could be wrong. I could be totally wrong predicting this, but for my opinion, I think Anderson's going to have a good game. I think he's going to have a fantastic game for his 200th appearance for the club. So I've got no qualms about Anderson at the moment. I think it's one of them where we just have to... I think once the consistency goes into the whole squad, I think we'll see a more consistent Anderson throughout the season, not just, most games being all right, and then you have the few games where he didn't turn up. We'll see an even more consistent Anderson. And I think that we're seeing a bit of a consistent Anderson at the moment. I think he's been good. I think he's been good this season. He's not been amazing or fantastic. I think he's been decent this season. He's been the leader that we know he can be. And the reason why I say decent and not fantastic is the best thing about Anderson is his defensive duty and the way he blocks attempts and the way he gets involved in the defending and the tackling and all sorts. Proper rock, I'd be testing him sometimes to see if he was actually made of 100% granite, but he is 100% rock. On his best day, he can just block shots in the blink of an eye. He could block shots like a pirate ship could fire back cannonballs to an opposition pirate ship. The Armada versus the Black Flag. He's an ultimate defender on his day, and we know what he's capable of on a consistent basis. Grant McCann said it in his press conference. There's just some notes from his press conference from that particular topic. Proper leader, true professional. He's had his knocks and setbacks. Tremendous servant. He loves a promotion. He wants a promotion, and hopefully McCann's confident that it's going to be this year or next year. Hopefully that he gets that promotion under his belt. Obviously, he was. I'd love to see him get a promotion. I think he needs it. After being involved in the team's relegation a couple of years ago, I think that he needs that promotion under his belt, and I think it'd really help his cause as a long-term servant. Obviously we know that James Coppinger's, in my opinion, the greatest Doncaster Rovers player of all time. We know there's plenty of other names up there, the likes of Jeffrey, Colin Douglas, Harry Gregg. Names that I never got a chance to see that other people have seen. But in terms of post-James Coppinger debut, in terms of current serving players, Tom Anderson and Tommy Rowe are two of the best Doncaster Rovers players since Coppinger retired. And that's of any time period. And that's of all their time they've been at the club. And that includes Rowe's first and second spells. So Anderson is up there. So for me, Anderson, he's going to get a nice reception for his 200th appearance, and I really, really back the fans to give him a great reception for his 200th appearance when it gets mentioned in the stadium at some point before the game, during the lineups, whenever. I really hope we back him towards that, and I think he'll be fantastic. On Morecambe quickly, obviously McCann said they know they have a centre forward who can score goals, referencing to Michael Mellon. Saw the draw with Stockport County, thought it was decent point. We're not going to approach it any differently to anything before. Worked very hard, got to get the plan right. He understands the situation with Morecambe, with manager Jeb Brannan from experiencing everything in football already. We need to be more consistent, and apparently we want to be more consistent, and that's what I want to see as well. Put a decent run together, and when he says a decent run, 3, 4, 5 wins is what he described, which will come from the things we do in training, the things we do Monday to Friday, and he's absolutely spot on as usual. With McCann's squad, I think the only thing we're missing now is consistency. Performance levels are light years above last season and the season before that, and the season before, and at least half the season before that. We're talking from 2021 onwards. We're talking that kind of stretch in terms of the consistency and performance levels. They're light years above the last 2 and a bit years at the moment, and we can't complain as Rovers fans, in my opinion. It's all about making progress, all about making those strides forward. It's like Neil Armstrong walking on the moon. One small step for man, one giant leap for Rovers kind. Apollo 11. And the reason why I call it Apollo 11 is because we've got 11 players on the pitch, not because Apollo 11 was an absolute disaster. But yeah, for me, Doncaster Rovers really, the performance levels have been consistent this season in terms of the performance levels. But for me, the results just need to be more consistent. And I think we'll get to that point. It's just going to take that little step further during the second half of the season and probably going into next season as well. So yeah, let's start previewing then the Morecambe game. Let's take a bit of a look in their recent form and also previous meetings, and also make my prediction. So let's do this. So, of course, Morecambe, their previous 5 games, it was an away defeat to Barrow. Then it was a 3-2 away defeat to Grimsby. An away defeat 6-0 to Wrexham. A home 2-1 loss against Newport. And then a 1-1 draw at Stockport the previous game. Our previous meetings against these guys, obviously, the first one of the 4 in October 2016, a 5-1 win away from home. Obviously, I believe that was copying just 500th appearance as well, which was obviously a big milestone. 1-1 draw at home in April 2017. Sorry, I wasn't, not April 2017, on the 4th in 2017. On the 18th in 2021, we got the 1-0 win at home, and then away from home, obviously, on the 2nd in 2022, it was obviously that massive 4-3 defeat, which, might I add, we were 3-0 up on. We really don't need to remind ourselves of that game because, as you could tell by the earlier videos, I was absolutely fuming. I was so fuming I had steam coming out of my ears. It's like those old Looney Tunes cartoons or Disney cartoons. Like 90s work whistle angry. That's the way Chris Griffin describes it in Family Guy, and that's how I felt in that Morecambe game. I picked a couple of players out to watch in particular. They're both attacking players, so to the defending players, I apologise. Jacob Badow as a defensive option, I think, is probably the best of the bunch. But in terms of attacking options, Michael Mellon and Adam Mayer. 11 goals in 18 league appearances for Michael Mellon at the moment. Very physical striker. I noticed that was some of the highlights from Morecambe. A very physical striker, of course, on loan from Burnley. If we do look in the loan market for a striker in the summer next year with Fell going back to West Brom, this is someone who I would potentially look at as an option, Michael Mellon, depending on obviously what happens with us this season and what happens with Morecambe this season as well. Adam Mayer, 19 years old, by the way, ex-Preston and current Morecambe Youth Academy prospect. He scored 7 goals in a total of 59 senior appearances in all competitions for Morecambe. Great future talent, great young future player. Got a lot of potential ahead of him. Very quick, direct player, and I think he's got a lot of room to grow in the game as well. And whether he decides to do it at Morecambe or somewhere else long term is obviously up to him and up to the club. Obviously, going into this game, in terms of predicting the game, we had to look at the current form going into it. Morecambe have 1 point from the last 15 available, including 4 straight away defeats. Doncaster Rovers have 7 points from the last 15 available, including a current 5-game unbeaten streak on home turf in all competitions. If you were the form book, you would be sweeping a landslide like Supermarket Sweep Extreme in the favour of Rovers. But we know in League 2, the form book doesn't always play by the rules. It doesn't always play nicey-nicey. Now, Rovers are unbeaten in the last 2 home meetings against Morecambe in the league, but we all know that could change. But I'm confident about this one. I'm going to go with Rovers 2, Morecambe 0. Make sure you do like, comment, subscribe. Stay tuned for the vlog coming from the Morecambe match this weekend. Stay tuned for that. And for now, guys, I am the CHALL. Ta-ra for now. Mean that badge to you, you Reds.